Energy Storm came with my home. Initially, I thought it was Google, but after doing the research on it.
And we're live.
Hello. We're a bit early today. So it makes a big difference from being late usually. So
exactly
can everybody hear us out there?
I can hear you guys, says Terrence. They can hear us.
Terrence says he can hear us. Oh yeah, okay, good. Good. There we go. Well, this is Inappropriate Characters. As usual, I'm the RPG pundit, final boss at Internet Shitlords, and as always, I'm joined tonight by Venger Satanis and the newly minted Florida Man RPG, Joe Bittman.
Yes, I can finally reveal my Florida Man-ness is official. I'm going to be the next show. I'll be filming from the new Florida Man RPG Studios. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, I just changed my handle to Florida Man RPG. So I'm gonna follow everybody. I just haven't done it yet, other than Lord Mattias. I think need to start following everybody on my new one, and then I guess I'll shut down.
All right. Thank you to everybody on the timeline that's on the chat line rather that's pouring one out for Big Chungus. You know, I'm gonna terribly miss that cat, but
well, do you want to tell everybody what's going on? I got a picture of Chungus. Some people don't know what happened. So.
Oh well, you know, those of you who watch my YouTube or on Twitter, you know I've got my two cats, Meatball and Big Chungus. That's Big Chungus there in the picture now, and Big Chungus passed away kind of unexpectedly yesterday. She was losing a bit of weight, and you know they're both old cats, right? The Big Chungus and Meatball are sisters. They're both due to turn in 8 days. Meatball is going to be 12 years old, and Chungus would have been. But yeah, it's very sad. But she had a very full life and even became a social media star. So I'm just happy that so many more people than I would have expected, you know, ended up getting to know her a little bit through my videos and my Twitter pictures. So she won't be forgotten. But thank you to everybody who sent condolences. All right. So today we've got one big main topic, and it's about one of us, and curiously not about me. You know, I tend to prefer when topics are about me, but in this case, I think I'm happy it's not. So Venger Satanis has been having quite the week. I think it's been about a week since all this started up, and he has been engaged in some controversial issues, I guess you could say.
Bastard.
He's gotten a lot of people mad at him, and of course, you know, the SJWs for sure, but then there's also been some other debates, including most recently between me and him about certain things. But I'm guessing, okay, Venger, I think it starts with when you did this video regarding the was it the proposed Texas law on transgender kids, or where do your current woes begin, Venger? Let's start with that.
Let's start at the beginning. By the way, I do have kind of a head cold, just for everybody watching. So if I seem a little out of it or nasally or whatever, that's why. So apparently back in 2020 on Facebook, I was criticizing the Black Lives Matter organization because they were openly Marxists and a variety of other reasons, like the riots were burning down our cities and, you know, a whole bunch of other...
Those were mostly peaceful riots, Venger. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, far be it from me to criticize a mostly peaceful protest. But my criticism was taken to heart by a lot of people, including a local game store called Misty Mountain Games. And apparently, way back then, they publicly, I don't know if it was on their little piece of Facebook, but they effectively banned Chalt. They said that they took it off their shelves and destroyed it, and they didn't want me back in their store running games or probably doing anything else. But I didn't find out about this until very recently, because as everybody knows, I think, I wanted to run games at GaryCon this year, but they required a mask the whole time, and I didn't want to do that. So then I was going to run games at TSRCon, because that was running at the exact same time. But then Justin Lanassa turned out to be a raving psychopath. So that didn't work out either. So then I was just like, how about I run some games on a few Saturdays in March to make up for it? My wife was totally cool with that. So I'm like, great. So I contacted Misty Mountain Games, asked them a bunch of questions like, do you require masks? And do you have any events going on this day, this time? And is it okay if I, run games there? Because they have a big open, just general gaming area where you can just come and use the tables and the chairs. So then they responded like that I'm not family friendly enough. And then other people like called up or asked them on Facebook, and they didn't like that I made fun of feminism in my book. And then it came out later, like a day later, about the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And that's when they decided, way back in 2020. And so that was the whole thing. And I made a video about that. And then, yeah, shortly, like a day after that, then the whole Texas trans thing happened. And also, I feel like the whole Florida, the Don't Say Gay anti-groomer bill came out, and I was, I'm very much pro-children and pro-parent, and against, transing the kids, everything from surgery to, hormones and things like that. Wait until you're 18, kids, because you go through a lot of phases, and there's a lot of pressure. Don't do anything that's going to potentially destroy your life until you're of age. That's just my policy for anything. That's a tattoo or a piercing or putting those surgical like horns underneath your skin, like the subdermal. Like, don't do anything that's so radical physically to yourself until you're 18. That's just my policy in general. And it includes transgenderism and all that stuff.
Okay, so Venger, when you did that blog entry, it was a blog entry or a video, I don't know which one, but
both. It was both.
When you did that, what was the reaction there?
It was mixed, I think. A lot of people came out in favor of what I was saying and in total agreement. And then a lot of people were openly criticizing me because they felt like I was, I don't know, crapping on the LGBTQ plus, or that I was trying to, whatever their claims are, like,
and were you?
The existence of trans kids or whatever. I mean, I don't know.
Well, the question is, were you? I mean, from your own perspective, was that what you were trying to do?
I was with the Florida bill, I'm against teachers indoctrinating children about various sexual behaviors and gender ideologies, which parents might object to. Now, with the Texas bill, as I stated just a moment ago, all I want is for kids not to do anything serious and physical to themselves until they're 18. So I'm not trying to erase anybody's existence or make everybody go back in the closet or whatever. I'm just trying to protect kids because they're extremely impressionable. I mean, that's fact one about children. And two, they're very important and precious. My kids are precious to me. I don't want anyone messing with them or telling them stuff that I might not agree with, or pressuring them to do things that would possibly harm them down the road. So some people understand that and some people don't, and that's okay. That created some controversy, obviously, because people have opinions about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So just before you continue, I'm going to interrupt here because there's a comment that started that's like way back on the chat now. Question for me, and that's much more interesting talking about you. So I'm going to go to the question for me here. Jestro Games says, in Pundit's review of Aces and Eights, which I did, I think, like 12 years ago, he mentions how people misunderstood cowboys. Can he explain in detail? Jestro, because it's been a really long time since I wrote that, I think I'm going to need a bit more information about what you're quoting there. Because there are certainly ways I think that in the modern, context, people misunderstand both cowboys and what the Wild West in American history was. It's an area I've studied quite a bit, but I would need to know more specifics about what you're asking. All right. Second, let's take a look to see if anyone's had any comments so far on the chat, apart from pouring one out for Big Chungus. Sadwings Raging says based Venger.
Yes. Venger is based.
I'm not going to be surprised that a lot of the peanut gallery here are going to very much be in favor of your position.
This is a base chat room.
Malachi's Material Musing says, I read about the Florida bill, and it's specifically K to 3, if I recall correctly. Let me suggest something to everyone. The Florida bill, besides anything else, is a shockingly impressive act of gubernatorial brevity, because usually these goddamn bills are ridiculously huge, right? This bill that we're talking about, the one in Florida specifically, is 3 pages long, and the first page is just the preamble. So in terms of its size, it's really tiny. Any of you can get it and read it. Read it for yourself and see what it actually says. And I think it's obviously the media jumped into calling it the "Don't Say Gay" bill. It nowhere says that anywhere in the bill. And in fact, there's no prohibition to like I saw in some media channels they were saying, well, and even I think Democrats did like a video or something, like a political ad about it, suggesting that if a kid has 2 gay dads and he talks about it in school, it'll be like a forbidden topic and they'll get into trouble or something. And that there's nothing about that in that bill. And Malachi is correct that the bill specifically, it bans certain things that only range from kindergarten to grade 3. So we're talking about kids between 4 or 5 to 9 years old, right? And so it bans teaching them about, explicit sexual education. It bans teaching them gender theory. It bans them being given medical exams without or counseling without parental consent, because apparently that was a thing that was happening, which is, kind of crazy. And so, I think that this bill has been wildly misrepresented. It's also been misrepresented to some degree by the right, who, for obvious reasons, partly to just own the libs or something like that, call it the groomer bill, right? It's not really, groomer implies, that kids are being, trafficked into something or something like that, right? What it is it's a bill that's meant to stop an out of control, rampant ideological agenda that has infested the entire public school system, which suggests that, first of all, the purpose of teachers now is to teach this ideological theory to children and brainwash them with it over the course of their entire education, so that they come out being loyal followers of this cult. So it's if anything, it's an anti-brainwashing bill. You know, there's some collateral news that I recently saw. In England, the American school in London, which is a very prestigious school, has just been dropped like 3 levels in its Ofsted rating. Ofsted is the government agency in Britain that regulates how good schools are working, because apparently kids aren't being taught anything there anymore, because it being the American school, it has the American kind of influenced curriculum. And apparently kids are like failing at everything, because at every class, they're just being taught, you know, critical race theory, gender theory, et cetera, right? They're not actually being taught any of the things they need to pass the tests that the British school system requires to you know, classify as an effective school. So it's really, I think, the anti-brainwashing bill, right? But I encourage everybody not to believe me. You know, read it for yourself. It's literally the actual text of the law is only 2 pages long. Anybody could read it and see for themselves. And I think that's the way you know what you're really going to think about it. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think with this statement that you made, you did generate some controversy. Obviously, there are a lot of people in the OSR, because the OSR tends, especially the part of the OSR that's very active in social media, tends to be conservative. But there were there were quite a few people that were not really on board with everything you said. I know, for example, Dolly Pop. I don't want to you know, point her out specifically, but I know that right now she's like doing a video about it too. So. You know, she wasn't very happy with it. I don't think Aaron was. I don't know, but you know, and as for me, I didn't comment on it publicly because I've had other stuff going on. These last couple of weeks, I had a friend who came down from Canada, so I was not really very active on social media while all this was happening to you, and or because of you, whichever way you want to look at it. And then, you know, the thing with my cat. So, but you know that I commented to you on in private conversation that I can kind of understand. I mean, you're a parent, right? You know, one thing we got to keep in mind here is I think you weren't speaking from a point of view of like an objective, aloof academic perspective on the subject, or from the perspective of legal precedent or anything like that. You were speaking from the point of view of somebody who's like a father to something like 10 children. I forget how many you've got now, but you know, a ridiculous amount of kids. And you know, it's the same thing.
I think I'm up to 30 now.
Sorry?
I think I'm up to 30 kids now.
Okay, there you go, 30 kids.
And more just popped out like just a minute.
All right. So you know, what you were doing was reacting on the same level that caused this bill to be put into law in the first place, from, you know, millions of other parents, and it cost, like, in San Francisco, the most liberal goddamn city in all of the United States, you know, they kicked out an entire school board because of this bullshit, right? Because of critical race theory and gender theory and this ideological agenda and this perspective that the entire public school system has now, which is that parents don't, you know, shouldn't be in charge of their own children, that the schools and educators and social workers and the government should be in charge of their children, right? And obviously, any parent is going to look at that and say, you know, go fuck yourselves. And this is why you've got like 32 Democratic congressmen that have announced their retirement, because they know they're going to get their asses kicked in November, right? Because the left can't stop doing this. You know, they can't help themselves. You know.
Well, you know, you guys. Well, hold on, Venger. I got one. Like, I can just kind of throw in a personal anecdote here. So, like, one of the reasons I'm leaving and moving to Florida, in Washington, once a kid turns 13, they can make their own medical decisions. The parents can no longer do anything unless the kid sign a release. So part of what this means is, for example, if your 13-year-old child is, you know, addicted to drugs, and you take them to rehab, they can sign themselves out at 13 years old, and you can't do anything about it.
Jesus. Wow.
And so in the school systems here, you know, they push a lot of this like CRT stuff. They literally have a non-school affiliated therapy, like community free therapy that is right next to the campus, but it's not on the campus. It's privately funded. And I know from talking to several parents here that like they, counsel children about like them being trans. So kids as young as 13 years old can leave, get out of school, walk right over to this building, and they will, give them all kinds of, counseling and therapy, whatever that is, for free. And as a parent, you can't do anything about it. You can't stop them from going there. You can't, you have, as far as I'm concerned, the state of Washington is just like taking all control out of the parents' hands.
So, it is, yeah, it definitely is. That's some scary stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I'm just getting out of this hell state.
Yeah, this is all part of what's causing what I think Ben Shapiro recently called the Great Sifting, right? Which is in this past year or two, you've had millions of people literally moving out of blue states and into red states, and also a somewhat lesser amount moving out of red states and into blue states for political reasons mainly, right? Like you've got this huge migration as states become more polarized. But anyways, I didn't finish saying though that Venger, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I also felt that the way you ended up expressing it, which was clearly very driven from your own perspective and your own kind of emotions of this as a father, which is completely understandable. It was still kind of like a raging bull in a china shop, right? And that it was a bit, let's say, not the best etiquette. Let's put it.
Well, yeah, I could have taken a more neutral, objective, even-handed position. But in today's culture, I just didn't feel like that would break through. Like the noise and the social media algorithm, if you will. And so I purposely was a little heavy-handed with the language. And I think that's one of the things that a couple of people, not more than a couple, like probably half a dozen people objected to, like Deli Pop and Aaron. When I started using words like child abuse and things like that, I totally understand where they're coming from, that I was using probably emotionally charged language. But I was erring on the side of A, trying to get the message out so people would even like be aware of it, and B, just how passionately I felt about my position. So yeah, I totally could have been more like neutral or objective about it, but I chose a different path, and yeah, I got a little more controversy than I bargained for, but that's okay. I don't mind. It started the conversation, and you see where that shit goes, and you live with it.
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the things that it did is that I would almost say, Venger felt a little offended that when John Potato did his video attacking the alt-right in the OSR, Venger only got like 4 minutes of airtime versus me and Grim getting like half an hour each or something, But now they're all talking about you, and so, but that was obvious, that's to be expected, that they're going to jump on that, and especially at a moment where we've suddenly had the OSR, winning some serious movement against them, because we're trying to make it more obvious, or at least some of us have been trying to make it more obvious that in the OSR, we don't care about what your demographics are in any way. We just care that you really actually want to play and design RPGs, and that you're making them for what they are and not for, you know, political reasons. We're opposed to the politicization of RPGs, and especially of OSR RPGs, obviously. And so now they kind of latched onto that to say, oh, well, look, see all this guy, you know, if you go over there, you have to agree with Venger. And I think the first thing I want to say is that's obviously not true. None of us agree with Venger entirely. Some of us disagree with him frequently, right? And one of the things about the OSR, sorry?
Sometimes even I don't agree with myself.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So like, you know, the one of the differences of the OSR versus, you know, the way that the wokeists do things is we don't have a top-down hierarchy. We don't have a special elite crew that are like the political committee that decide what is going to be promoted and what isn't, you know. And we have a bunch of people all think different things. And generally, though, the point is supposed to be that we're not trying to make, like, you know, right-wing RPGs or something like that. We're not trying to make political RPGs. We're trying to make good RPGs that are about the game, you know. I think it's and I think it was like, you know, really, they were really getting hit hard by this. You know, first Potato John Battle does this video and you know, a month later, you know, both me and at the very least, both myself and Taylor Lane had like the best month of our lives in terms of our sales. And meanwhile, he's recently been on Twitter asking people to buy some shitty supplement of his to be able to pay the rent this month, you know? So we saw who won that one, guys. And now we've got this, the OSR supplement jam, which is on itch.io, that was organized by Taylor Lane. And itch.io, for those of you who don't know, is a site that's similar in some ways to DriveThruRPG, right? It's a place where people put RPGs on PDF and you can buy them, right? But it's always been kind of the lefty version of that, right? It's where you have, you know, it's where all the SJWs hang out. And suddenly we've got like almost 90 people that have signed up and are making supplements, OSR supplements, regular OSR supplements in the OSR supplement jam, including a really great one for Star Adventurer that someone did that you can, you know, it has mecha rules to add to my Star Adventurer RPG. And I think there's going to be like Chalt stuff on there too. And who knows what else, right? Lots of good stuff. And we're doing it on their territory and they're losing their freaking minds about that, right? Like it's, we're attacking them on their own turf from their point of view, right? When really all we're doing is we're making good RPGs in itch.io, which is a bit of a rarity. And you know, so we've been getting all of those gains, right? And then, you know, so obviously they're going to jump on this and try to milk it for all it's worth to try to claim that you know, the OSR is just full of transphobes and haters and things like that. And I don't even think that. I mean, Venger will have to judge his own soul, obviously, but I don't even think Venger's a transphobe. No. Venger's a parent. You know, he has some concerns as a parent, as many parents do, and very legitimately, about the current culture around kids and you know, the idea of gender transition and stuff like that, and a situation that is pretty messed up in that you know, there's a whole bunch of agency that is being removed, not just from parents, but for example, from psychologists, right? You know, they talk now about banning conversion therapy. And when you hear the word conversion therapy, you think that means like, you know, some Bible thumping pastor in some, you know, slave labor camp telling these gay kids that they have to pray until they stop being gay, right? That's what conversion therapy was like, you know, 20 years ago. And in fact, I remember in like my first year of blogging, I did a blog about how fucking awful that conversion therapy bullshit is, right? So that's conversion therapy, right? But now they're using the term to mean any kind of questioning of anybody who is wanting to gender transition, right? Or who is gender questioning, to do anything except unquestioningly support that and encourage it and speed it up. Is now considered to be a kind of malpractice on the part of doctors and psychologists. And so that's super dangerous, right? Because it means like, even if, no matter what you think, you know, especially when you've got stuff like this, like there's this phenomenon called sudden onset gender dysphoria, which is teenage girls mostly who, go on Tumblr and then they end up thinking they're trans, even though they were never, gender dysphoric as preteens. But it's because all their friends are doing it, and there's like this, and teenage years are complicated, so you have like doubts about yourself, your body, etc. And you think, well, maybe I'm trans, right? And that's something where you'd want to like really be careful about that, about what's going on there. But the law itself is now not allowing that to happen, or the practices of these medical and psychological associations. So there's lots of stuff that's really dubious there. And to say nothing about what the Florida bill is about, which is, people encouraging, teachers, supposed teachers. I think it's insane if you have kids in the United States to send them to a public school. Find any other option, right? Because it's just madness to put them in public school. Yeah. But you got these teachers that in their own, like in their conversations among each other, they talk about this term called cracking the egg, right? Which is that they're supposed to try to encourage as many kids as possible to question their cis normativity, to question whether they're really, straight and cisgendered, and that's really encouraged for teachers to do that, right? Of course, to do the opposite is a hate crime, right? to suggest any doubts about that is a hate crime. So it's super dangerous, and they're encouraging kids to change their name and wear a dress or whatever, change their clothing at school behind their parents' back, and to see counselors behind their parents' back. And in some cases, as Joe pointed out, the law is now making it so that very, very young kids can make life-changing decisions completely on their own without the support of either parent, right?
Yeah, actually, in Washington State,
or even without them knowing, right?
Yeah, in Washington State, like the schools, they won't tell the parents if their kids, go to a counselor and say, I think I'm trans, or I'm questioning, or whatever, and they'll even give them a different name that they won't even tell you as the parent. And then, anyone who's raising a kid in Washington State is crazy. You need to get the hell out of this state, man. One of my friends is a therapist for a federally funded thing, and this is how crazy Washington State laws are. Is that she like privately tells parents that, if their kids are like on drugs or whatever at 13, to drive them across the border to Portland and put them in rehab because they can't sign themselves out until they're 16. So,
well,
Portland is the more restrictive, has the more restrictive laws. It's crazy.
Portland is the center of sanity in the West Coast. My God,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All of you who are familiar with me know that I'm pro LGBT. I have been since the early 90s. I was in favor of gay marriage. Technically, what I would say, because I'm a cultural libertarian, I'm against government being in charge of marriage at all. Right. But if government is in charge of marriage, then who can get married should be as open as reasonably possible. So I was in favor of gay marriage way before Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or any of these Democrats were. I very much recognize that there are people that are transgendered, that gender dysphoria starts in childhood for most of those people. Now we know that some kids with gender dysphoria stop having gender dysphoria when they're older, quite a lot of them, if you don't put them on puberty blockers, and turn out to be most of those turn out to be either gay or lesbian, because as a prepubescent, that seems to be one of the ways that some people who end up being gay or lesbian end up understanding their feelings or what have you, that they don't really understand what it's really about until they hit puberty and start having sexual development. But anyway, the point is, I'm not against trans people. I'm not against transgendered people transitioning necessarily. But I very clearly recognize that the way that the ideologues have set up this system now, it's extremely dangerous. It's a system that isn't a healthy system for anyone, right? Because you're gonna end up having more and more people that are gonna end up being badly hurt by this, and I don't think that should be the goal for anyone. Which gets to the fundamental problem, which is that I think if you thought about it, because a lot of people looked at what you said, Venger, and they thought, well, Venger is against trans people, and that's not what you're against. You're against these ideological totalitarians and what they're doing. And those people don't actually give a two-penny fuck about transgender people. They only care about that in the context of their larger agenda of deconstructing Western society, right? And you know this because any transgender person, any queer person, any LGBT person, or for that matter, you know, with the critical race theorists, any person of color who doesn't toe the line with them is the number one public enemy for them to be destroyed, right? It's why I've said before, you know, Taylor Lane, for example, is more dangerous to the D&D SJWs than any of the three of us. And so, you know, I think that problem that is that you've got the way you came across is something they could use to do that Mott and Bailey that they always do of saying, well, you know, because you don't agree with our incredibly radical agenda, that means you hate all trans people, you know, and that's where you end up having the problem is that, you know, some people might believe that.
Yeah, I mean, even coming away from this discussion with what you said, and you're very, you know, well spoken about it, very clinical, objective. You know, a lot of people are going to say that you are whatever, you're transphobe, or you're.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know that they're going to say they've been saying I'm transphobic for years now, right? Even though I very clearly am not. I know I'm not, and people that actually listen to what I say know I'm not. But there you are. You know,
right. I think they have to have an enemy. They have to have a scapegoat. They have to have someone to rail against, or else they really have nothing except minding their own business and writing good games, which obviously they're not going to do that. So what else do they have except to make you know, a false enemy of us and, you know, constantly go into battle and attack us? That's all they have. I mean, that's probably their number one excuse. Like, well, I can't write a good game today or module or supplement or adventure because I have to spend all my energy and time fighting against the heteronormative patriarchy that's trying to disenfranchise all the trans kids.
But now the problem here, though, is that you had some people that do think well of you that also felt that way, right? And I don't know if there's anything you want to clarify to people like, you know, like Dolly Pop, for example.
I think they realize that it is a policy difference, and that I hope they realize that I'm willing to, you know, talk to people and find common ground, maybe find a compromise somewhere in there. I agree that not every government proposal is perfect when it's first laid out. Maybe there's some bugs in it. Maybe something can be streamlined or tweaked a little bit to make things, you know, better or less bad for a certain contingent of the population. So yeah, I hope people realize that yeah, there's room for compromise. I'm flexible, and if you approach it from the position of, you know, let's start a dialogue, and if you want to work on it with me, or you want to discuss it, I'm willing to do that. Obviously, I'm not in government. I didn't write the bill. I didn't do anything. I'm not enforcing anything. I really have nothing to do about it except to say
you're not running for governor of Wisconsin.
I'm not yet. I don't like this or do like that. And the people that are objecting to something I said are in the same exact position. maybe they have a chance if they live in Texas or Florida to vote on the official that has something to do with it. But really, they have no say whatsoever. So I don't know why I would be the target of harassment. Not that's what they're doing, but there are certain people out there on social media or YouTube that want to try to like dig up stuff and make things up and attack me. And I don't know, whatever. If people want to keep attacking me, I don't care. I literally don't care. So, yeah.
Right now, that particular post of yours was not the end of the whole thing. Since then, what else has happened?
Oh, okay. So you mean the Chult right thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to come full circle, because in 2020, when Misty Mountain Games was publicly or privately, I've seen screenshots, so it must have been public to some degree. When they were talking about me and they were talking about Chult, they conflated the two. Well, they wrongly thought that I was alt-right. I never have been, but a lot of people use that as a cudgel to, beat their ideological opponents. So they used the phrase Chult right to describe both me and Chult. And I brought that to light in a video and talking about it in the conservative Facebook group. And some people thought it was very funny. And they're like, I'm Chult right, whatever that means. And then someone created an image with like a pyramid behind it. And then it says Chult right. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And I posted that on Twitter. And then shortly after that, all hell broke loose. People were like, well, that's proof that he's admitting that he is alt-right. I'm like, wait, what? No, it's a joke. I thought it was funny because it's using Chult in a weird, funny way, and it's mocking the people that called it Chult right. And I don't know. I didn't take it particularly seriously. Some people did. And then that turned into me being forced to, I don't know, condemn people that I never think of and I never talk to. And I don't know. It's like being asked to condemn the Easter Bunny. Like, I've never met the Easter Bunny. I'm not even sure. I mean, based on what people say, I guess the Easter Bunny does exist. I've never seen him. I've never seen his works. So it just seemed ridiculous that I would need to do that. But then I was just like, if it makes everybody feel better for me to confirm to the world that I'm not a neo-Nazi, then yeah, I guess I'll do that. I shouldn't have to, but I will, just to clear it up. So you could probably add more context from your perspective, since you were there, pundit.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, I mean, I know you're not a neo-Nazi, right? And I think most people who follow you know that. And obviously, the SJWs do well. I don't even think they think you're a Nazi. They just call everybody a Nazi who disagrees with them, right? So they're going to take you that way, anyways, right? But one of the reasons why the SJWs, like John Potato in his video that led to me making a ton of money and him having to beg for rent, he commented on, he titled it the alt-right in the OSR, right? He didn't say, Nazis in the OSR, because it's a convenient term for the left to imply, this particular type of boogeyman.
I bet if you made a poll and you asked everybody in the role-playing sphere on the left, if you voted for and or supported Trump when he was in office, does that make you alt-right? I bet at least 50% of the people in that poll would vote or would say yes. Yeah, if
Yeah, I
you
think that you're
supported and
probably
voted
right.
for
Yeah.
Trump, then you are alt-right.
And that's exactly what makes it useful, because it's this blurry term that they can try to use to suggest, even though it's actually nowadays a very specific thing, right? It's like the people who are alt-right are the guys like Richard Spencer and Bart Kearns and Nick Fuentes, these people that are the Groypers and what have you, right? These people that are openly racial essentialists, ethno-nationalists, and anti-Semites.
I only heard the term Groyper. I heard that for the first time, I think a year, maybe 18 months ago. I was talking to someone online, I think about what's his name? Matt Walsh, who's a podcaster on the Daily Wire, so on the same platform as like Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles. And someone said that he was, and then someone else said that maybe he wasn't. And the only thing I took away from that is that those people are anti-pornography. And I am extremely pro-pornography. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone more into porn than I am, to put it mildly. So
Venger likes the titty pics.
I could be one of those people even if they let me, which I wouldn't, because I'm the furthest thing from anti-Semitic.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure anyone who works for Ben Shapiro isn't either, right? Like that's
exactly.
an example of how they can try to extend this definition to encompass other people that someone might think, oh, well, alt-right's a bad thing. And they might say, if they said, well, I don't know, let's say Madison Cawthorn, oh, he's a Nazi, right? People say, oh, fuck off, right? But if they say he's alt-right, oh, well, maybe he is. I don't know, this is something that's convenient for them. And the problem is at the same time, because we've got this thing, right? Like, nowadays, what I would like to do is redefine the name of the people that are actually that call themselves the alt-right today. And just call them the CRT right? The critical race theory right. And, BLM and stuff like that, critical race theory left, right? Because they have the exact same theory. They believe the exact same things. They believe in segregation. They believe that race is the most important quality anybody can have. They believe that people of different races cannot possibly understand each other or interact socially in an effective way unless one is dominating the other. And they believe in every detail, everything that they believe in. They both hate Israel, they both don't like Jews, all of that. So they're both critical race theorists. It's just that they're on different teams, right? One is on team red, the other one's on team blue, right? And that's what they are.
You should call them race theory right, because they're not really into the whole critical, like, Marxist phenomenon. They're just kind of like really into this racist and racial essential ideology.
Yeah, but effectively, critical theory came out of Marxism, but it's not necessarily something that can only be applied to Marxism, right? Like they're still fundamentally, they're deconstructionists, right? Because all these alt-right people hate modernism. They hate the values of the Enlightenment. They hate the ideas of, Martin Luther King. They hate the idea that the founding fathers had in the idea, the concept of personal liberty or the individual over the collective. They're all collectivists, right? And they all want to deconstruct our modernist civilization, the civilization based on the individual and based on individual inalienable rights.
Some do. Some are just under the impression that races are not created equally, and I don't know if it comes from like an inferiority complex or something like that, that they have to say like, no, my race is better.
Well, in my experience, racists are people, anybody whose central thing that they define as the best thing about them is something that they were just born with, are people who have nothing better to brag about, right? So they're usually the most pathetic examples of their demographic that you could imagine,
And it goes the same thing with sexual orientation and like pronouns and stuff like that. If that is the most important thing about you, then you're probably not very interesting. And I don't know what we would even talk about. Like if you meet someone for the first time, and I'm like if you have like a 2-minute meeting, and like, what's the most important thing about you? What should I know about you to know you as a person? And they're like, well, I prefer to be called, whatever, and I like putting my junk into this kind of facet or whatever. It's like, okay, I guess a lot of other people do too. I still don't know anything about you. I don't know if we would get along. I don't know if we have the same hobbies.
Yeah, it says nothing about your intellect or your virtue or your qualities as a person. It's just, I totally understand.
I only know that you like slot B and what you want me to call you. That's...
I got to interrupt here. In the live chat, Judd Goswick says, tomorrow's big headline, trouble in the OSR. Venger challenges Grimm's right to the throne of boobs. That's true. You're kind of, it's between you and Grimm, who's the most pro-porn guy in the OSR,
Well, Judd Goswick's full of all kinds of wisdom today too, Venger. He said, when you write your explanation, not apology, avoid the title "My Struggle."
Well, but if you use the German, it should be okay, right?
Speaking of wisdom here, Adino the Esnite says, not to puff up pundit's ego, but I'm always impressed by his knowledge of history and modern subjects. Thank you, Adino.
He is very knowledgeable.
Yeah. So anyways, where were we? Yeah. So the thing is that when you did this thing that, when you promoted this banner and it
wasn't even a banner. It was a fan created image. It was just a single rectangular
this icon that, let's say, right?
Isn't that funny or whatever?
I think you were assuming that you could post it without commentary and that everybody would get that it's a joke, right? And I think on the conservative OSR Facebook page, it was very clear if someone's on there that it was set up as a joke. But but when you post it on Twitter, where there's a whole bunch of people that aren't in that group, you probably should have put some context to it, for starters.
Really, it was only you and Taylor that were like, and maybe it was Taylor that made you think oh, this could be a problem, Venger. You should address this sooner than later. But 99% of everybody on Twitter was cool with it and knew that it was a joke. It didn't take it seriously, because I'm literally part role-playing game designer, part comedian, part porn lover. So I don't know why anyone would take any political discussion from me super serious, because I joke around constantly. I'm constantly making jokes, trying to make people laugh, kind of trying to get my RPG comedian career off the ground, and then all of a sudden people are taking me seriously and doing the whole Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I'm like, whoa, chill out, dude. It was a joke. And then they wouldn't believe me or whatever. But they're like, yeah, it's a joke, but really deep down, you probably mean it. I'm like, why?
All right. So
why don't you take it at face value? What do I have to gain? Yeah, secretly, I I don't know, that I hate certain people. I don't know what they're even trying to say. Like secretly,
So-
I'm a Nazi, and this is my coming out party. Chill of rights. I don't get it.
So here's, I mean, I can't speak for what Taylor's perspective was, though I suspect that, you know, there are obvious reasons why Taylor might have been uncomfortable with that image. And the thing is, you know, I don't think that anyone here needs to like act extra delicately, like as if Taylor Lane is a fragile little flower that we all have to worry about or something like that. I'm pretty sure Taylor wouldn't think that way. But I do think that maybe it puts Taylor in a particular position where they might be worried that if they criticize you about something like this, because they think it's you know, not exactly, let's say it's not exactly in good taste or something like that, that there might be a lot of people that will immediately think, oh, see, you know, Taylor is, because, you know, just because Taylor is LGBT, you know, and on account of that will think, oh, see, you know, Taylor's just like all the rest of them and blah, 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 right? And could get some flack because Taylor's gone out of their way, like ridiculously out of their way. And this is why I think that they're awesome, right? To just focus on making these great products, organizing things like the Supplement Jam, doing everything right, and not being political in any particular way, except, you know, like just, you know, wanting the OSR to be about the games, just like the rest of us. But they do have this kind of situation where if they speak up in reaction to something, other people might think, oh, see, it's because they're actually just another SJW or something like that, which would be completely unfair, you know.
Right.
Now,
Well,
I'll leave.
Know that, like, you know, you can always criticize me because I'm literally constantly being criticized every day of my entire life. So it's not like news to me. Like, I can take criticism. People do it all the time. And B, you can always just ask me. Like, you can always be like, bro, what up with that? And I'll tell you.
What I would say to Taylor is that if Taylor thinks you're a cunt for having done that, for having posted that, they should go ahead and call you a cunt, you know, like they should. That's probably not the word Taylor would use, but you know, like that don't be afraid, because that, you know, there's no point in pussyfooting around it, and then just, you know, stand up to the fact, because like this was I had two issues with it. So I'm talking about from my perspective, which is the first, apparently you weren't as aware of this as I thought, but I have been, and people who follow me on Twitter a lot will know this, on many, many occasions. Seems to happen about once every couple of months. I end up getting, you know, taking a break from being in major flame wars with the SJW left, and I get into a really major flame war with the, you know, the Varg Vikernes crowd, right? The racist people who want to be part of the OSR and are desperately trying to find a way to do entryism, but because they're as a rule, right-wing racists are dumber than left-wing racists. They're really bad at it, right? So they haven't been as successful. But that doesn't mean that they're not a problem and that they shouldn't be ruthlessly mocked and humiliated for what stupid human beings they are, you know? So I've been, you know, I've fought against Varg and all of his little buddies on a very regular basis. And I know how they operate, and I know the way that they do this, because they, you know, when I started on Twitter, they did this with me, right? That there was like a number of people that followed me on Twitter and were commenting and stuff, and would kind of be riding on the coattails of me being kind of a known personality on the OSR and using that to friend other people and stuff like that. And then, you know, promoting some pretty hideous views about race or about Israel or what have you, you know. And then saying, well, hey, why are you calling me out, man? We're all part of the same team. No, we're fucking not. You know, I don't care if you're a left-wing collectivist or a right-wing collectivist. If you're a left-wing totalitarian or a right-wing totalitarian, you're scum, you know? So I've had to fight these guys. And I could see how immediately, the moment they saw that image, they were going to say, "Oh, great!" So like, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna promote it. We're gonna give Venger a lot of attention. We're gonna buy some of his products and stuff like that, and it'll seem great to him. But then at the same time, we're going to be using this to try to legitimize ourselves. Like, hey, Chult is awesome. It would go really well with my frog.
Right. I remember way back with G Plus, when you weren't being harassed by the RPG swine, and the leftists and those people.
Yeah.
You were really kind of at war with not the OSR, but like the traditional, like
the story gamers. Yeah.
Who've kind of like morphed into the bro SR kind of. But when you were calling people that wouldn't even like look at something that wasn't written by Gygax.
The OSR Taliban. I mean, they're stupid
Taliban.
too, but not nearly on the same level, right?
But and I still don't know. I mean, so everything you're saying about that is kind of a surprise, because I'm like, I know who Varg is because people talk about him occasionally. I've never really interacted with him. I've never seen one of his fans. I've never encountered anybody that was like, I think what he's doing.
Varg at one point followed me and was commenting on my posts, and somebody had to let me know that was Varg, because he doesn't, he kind of hides it. His Twitter account is like Gandalf something, and it's a picture of a wizard, and you think, oh, it's just some D&D guy, right? And turns out it's a convicted murderer and neo-Nazi Varg Vikernes,
Right. So the next time that you encounter these people, let me know, because
I will. I'll tag you in for sure. I'll be happy if you'll join me in pointing out what fucking inbred morons they are,
Right. I mean, maybe some people can be reached. I don't know. Like, I hate to shut the door on people that approach me in a decent civil way, because I'm thinking maybe some people that are truly racist kind of fell into that, and then maybe there's some sort of hope or redemption for them to like get out of it and like be more normal. But obviously, if they're totally unrepentant and just utterly neo-Nazis, then there's really no more discussion. Like, they shouldn't be a part of what we're doing, because, as you said, it's going to taint it, and it's going to make everybody look bad. And, we don't want our stuff to be associated with something as ugly as not only racism, but the genocide of, certain groups of people, like the Jews and who else? Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, there's just so many people that they did. Yeah, I mean, the homosexuals and the gypsies, and probably black people and Mexicans too. I mean, everybody that's not white. And that's obviously not okay. But like I said, if there's some people that can be reached and that aren't total dickbags or aren't that full into it, that maybe fell in with the wrong crowd, I would encourage them to get out of that and maybe join something that's not so self-destructive.
Yeah, that'd be great in theory.
Anyway, having said that, I really got to go.
Shit.
I'm going to take more Tylenol because, as I said, the head cold kind of sucks.
You
great to everybody.
Wait, can you shill your stuff for 1 minute?
Sure. VengerCon in July in Madison, Wisconsin. 3 days of old school, traditional, and OSR gaming. And then I just released a couple weeks ago the Chult Chartreuse Shadows PDF. I won't have the physical books in hand until like June or something like that. But the PDF is for sale, and I encourage everybody to get that because it's awesome. It's like a whopping 360 pages. So
watch the last half hour of this show later, Venger, so you can see the other thing that I was going to say about, my other criticism of what you've done. Then you can feel free to respond.
Yes, the pile, because yes, everybody criticizes me, and that's okay. I can take it.
But I want everybody to note that I am not canceling Venger. Venger is canceling himself because it's his bedtime.
Yes. All right. See you guys.
See you, dude.
Take care. All right. Before I continue, though, Job, do you have anything to add? Because we've been like, it was me and Venger going at it hard there, and you didn't get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to just take this one other dimension. This is well, I was going to ask Venger before, is it okay to post the link to that Kiwi Farms thing? Just because this site, this site is crazy. I'm going to put it in the chat if people want to check this out later. This thread on Avenger started in like October of 2021, October 1st, 2021. There's 30 pages of this. And I looked at, they have Venger and they have a bunch of other people on here, but like these are some crazy fucking people that like, I mean, I guess these are, kind of like your doxers, but I mean, there's a ton of these people that have like everything imaginable about Venger posted up on here, his kids' names and like pictures of his kids. Like, it's pretty crazy. There's like pictures of his wife's boobs. I mean, like these are some crazy people. But they did, I did notice, I read through that entire 30-page thread, and they're not completely without any class, because one of the guys says, watching Inappropriate Characters, it seems that Venger and Pundit are particularly, it seems that neither Venger nor Pundit is particularly comfortable on camera. The third host, Joe Bittman, is the only one who seems natural and confident during the show. Venger
That's pretty fucking funny.
Right? Venger acts like what you see above. Pundit spends a lot of time laughing nervously and explaining his own unfunny jokes. Politics aside, Bittman seems like the only one you wouldn't be embarrassed to invite to a party at your house.
Well, I get the feeling that the person that posted that is probably not an unbiased individual. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was me.
It was you? No, I didn't think it was you, but there's that sort of thread is obviously going to attract certain people, because usually Kiwi Farms is like, they're shit posters, right? And they're just, they like to. Well, I think that's part of this section they have called lol cows, which is a whole forum about people they find funny on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously, in this case, because of the politicization element, there's probably some people that post there, on that sort of thread, that are just directly, people that have a beef with me or with the Avenger or whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. I just posted the link. I mean, I'd never heard of this site before, and I thought it was kind of crazy how much, how much information.
Yeah, it's funny.
Posting.
They've got 30 pages about Venger. He's finally beaten us on something, like he's got more attention from them than anyone.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the only way I wanted to steer the conversation once we were kind of through all Avengers crap. So I don't know. I just try to stay out of the drama. Honestly, it's like I've got too much going on in my life to like add more drama to my fucking life.
That's very understandable. And it kind of gets to what my last point there was going to be, which is that the one of the things that we emphasize, certainly that I emphasize, but I also thought Venger did too, and what sets us apart from the wokeists is that our goal isn't for for RPGs to be conservative in politics, right? To be political propaganda for the right wing or anything like that, or libertarian propaganda or whatever. It's for them to be games and for them to be about games, right? I've never done a game to be political indoctrination ever in any of my products. I make them because they're good games, and most of them have no real bearing on my contemporary views on politics, Right. And one of the things that kind of bugged me about some of Venger's recent escapades is that he was being directly political, right? Our point is, we don't want the OSR to be directly political, and that might seem a little weird coming from me because obviously I end up talking a lot about politics and gaming, but when I do, it's always as a response to the entryism of this radical left-wing politics into gaming. I'm acting as a bulwark against that, right? I'm fighting back against that. I'm not saying, that people in the hobby should subscribe to my political views. I'm saying we shouldn't be forced to subscribe to their political views,
Yeah, I totally agree with that too.
And Venger was being kind of preachy, and kind of promoting some of his specific views, which is fine if he's doing a post that is like outside of, like, on my YouTube channel, I don't post political screeds that are divorced from what's going on in the gaming community. I don't comment, I don't comment on the Florida education law, right? Or the Texas transgender law. I comment on what's going on in the gaming industry, and that's it, and of course on my Twitter, I do comment about stuff politically, but I don't comment about that in the context of saying, well, in RPGs, we should be, doing this or that, like the whole point is we're supposed to be the ones that are into the games for the games, and not to do something else, and like, I get it that he was in part reacting to that there were people in the gaming community that the community, quote unquote, of the SJWs that were, how do you put it, advocating or politicizing about the Texas transgender law, and fair enough, but that's it still came out as he was trying to replace one political view with another that has nothing to do with gaming. Neither of those have anything to do with gaming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Andrew can do what he wants. I don't really care if people. I don't care if people put politics in their game as long as they're just like not. I don't know, if it's interesting and not heavy-handed, then I think it's okay. But when it's like a thin veneer for like bashing on Republicans or something like that, then it rubs me the wrong way. I think, I don't know. I mean, people should probably try to avoid that if they want to get the most amount of people to check out their product.
Yeah. But I mean, also the point for the hobby should be that we're saying, well, we don't really care what your political views are as long as you're not imposing them on us,
Right, yeah.
And just like we don't care about your race or your gender as long as you're not trying to politicize that into the games, We just want to be about the games.
Oh, sweet. We got a super chat. Chris Miller, thank you very much. So Chris Miller's $5 super chat. Check out Anchor, Kingdom of the Gods, the best sandals and ray guns RPG on the market, available at Drive-Thru RPG.
I think I can say that Chris Miller, besides being the publisher of the Anchor RPG, which is I did a video review of it a while back, and I was so impressed by the layout and it's not an OSR game, it's its own RPG, but by the layout and the art and everything, that I suggested that he do a pitch for my source book, and he is actually the guy who is publishing my upcoming Sword and Caravan setting campaign book for Lion and Dragon and for OSR play in general. So he's the man.
Nice. Yeah, I remember that video. I was actually interested in picking that one up. Yeah, more people out there. I know more people have games. If you guys want us to promote your games, then give us $5.
Yeah,
a little plug with our videos. Get
also, if you don't have games yet. If you don't have games yet, but you want to like get in on the on game designing, you've had the idea of trying your hand at making RPG products, be sure to check out the OSR supplement jam on itch.io. I don't have anything personally to do with it. I'm not making money from it. The only thing I'm doing is endorsing it, right? But it's a place where you can make a supplement for an existing OSR game, including any of mine, if you want to, and you can make money off it. And more importantly, you can, get some people to know you, right? So you'll have a larger reach because you're making a product for an established OSR game. Anyway, other comments here. Ironcaster says Kiwi Farms started from watching Chris Chan. They have an entire subboard dedicated to him. So they were like Chris Chan trolls. Okay.
Oh, we got another super chat from Dracopole, old friend, $5 Canadian. To cut through the nonsense of the trans movement, read Helen Joyce's Trans When Ideology Meets Reality. I'll have to check that one out. I don't know if I've read that one yet. What's that one? God, what's the I'm getting dumber. I don't know what's going on the last like month. I can't remember anything. It's crazy. Something harm. God. Abigail Schreier.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was pretty good.
Indigo Dragon says you'd think that after 106 pundit presents, he'd have written up jousting/tournament rules. Well, I think maybe one of the reasons I haven't yet is because that's something that was in Pendragon, and I'm still trying to figure out if there's a way I could do it better than they did it in Pendragon. So I didn't, you could do that. It's kind of easy to gamify the tournament rules. You just have to do non-lethal damage, some kind of check relating to how you control your horse, etc. But no, I haven't done that yet. So I have not done a medieval authentic jousting rule, but I do have one of the RPG Pundit Presents is called Medieval Authentic Aristocracy, where I talk a lot about what the actual lifestyle and culture of a medieval aristocrat was like, including their pastimes and things they did for fun and all of that. So that would be something useful. Dark Albion, somebody asks, what medieval authentic politics would be like going to court, right? And yeah, I mean, in Dark Albion, I do talk about the medieval court, and there's even a bunch of adventure seed for it. And then I've also did an RPG Pundit Presents, which is now a part of the Old School Companion Volume 1, which is courtly intrigues, as a bunch more adventure seeds for courtly intrigue type adventures. So there is some of that.
We're breaking the format here, man. We should do our shows real quick before we answer questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Your show screen. Got the floor.
Oh, it's me. All right. So I guess what I'm shilling right now is still the Old School Companion 2. It's doing very, very well. It's continues to be a bestseller, and you should really check it out. 320 pages, 26 different adventures, all based on medieval history, folklore, legend, and society. Various different power levels in the different adventures. So you've got a lot of stuff there that you can use. You can obviously use it with Lion and Dragon, but you can use it with any OSR system. So take a look at that. It's got all the adventures you want if you want to add some more medieval flavor to your campaigns. Also, the Invisible College, authentic magic OSR role-playing, conspiracy and modern supernatural RPG. Huge book, 430 pages, I think. And it's also doing very well. And be sure to check it out if you want a modern occult game that is very different from any of the other modern occult games. It's it's not quite like Call of Cthulhu, not quite like Mage the Ascension. But it's also an authentic game because it is based on these the kind of model of hermetic magic as people practice it today. So just gamified.
Pass the mic.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, I still got my web store. You can buy, my adventures, my occult toys. Called them one, I think. And also, finally, after I don't know how many months here, 5 months, the Book of Antitheses is available in the U.S. Lamentation store, us.lotfp.com. So you can pick it up now. It'll be in, if you want to save some money, it'll be in distribution in like a couple weeks, I think. But who knows? It could take 3 months the way that James runs this shit. So that's out now. And let's see. I got my new Twitter handle, Florida Man RPG. So if you follow me, move over there for, all my insightful tweets, which is basically I don't say anything, and then I have one drink too many, and then I'm a dick to a couple people on the internet, and then I feel bad about it, and then I don't post anything. So if you want to enjoy some more of that, you can follow me at Florida Man RPG. Let's see, and then there was a couple Jestro Games earlier commented, Job, what are your thoughts pertaining to the reaction to the Book of Antitheses? Are people enjoying it, hating it, etc., etc.? So yeah, I've got both reactions. There's people that are just like, this is 160 pages of utter gibberish, and which in some respects is completely true and a fair review of the book. Depending on where you are at in life, that might be what it comes across at, and it's not going to be for everybody. It's fucking weird. It's I don't know, avant-garde, I guess. I don't know. It's something total that's never existed before. So I tried to make something
definitely
new.
Avant-garde. Yeah.
Anyway, so I tried. I like the way that turned out. I think the book. I think it turned out really well. So it's actually James told me that it's already in the black. So basically like the James, when you do your little deals with James or whatever, it's like would the original profits from the book pay off the cost of printing the book? That's all done now, so everything is profit from on out. So that's good. It's actually the best selling of all the books in this release, from what I understand.
I was going to say that Jim said that when he was guest starring here, that it was the one that was selling best out of the new batch, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I built like a little dashboard that I watch the sales in real time, it's it's pulled ahead of all the other books, so that's good. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
And let's see. One other question was from Judd Goswick, said Brutal Blades update when the shilling comes around. I just haven't worked on Brutal Blades. I was working on it all the time, and then I think it's been maybe 6 months now. I haven't done anything on it. I've been working on promoting the Book of Antithesis stuff. I did a big press release, media push type of thing, and spent a lot of time on that, and basically I've gotten only one response so far. So hopefully next week we'll hear some more on that. Let's see. And okay, yeah, that was it for all my shillings.
All right.
Back to answering questions.
So Indigo Dragon says medieval politics would probably make use of the guillotine. No, wrong. The guillotine was not invented in the medieval period. It was invented much, much later. In the medieval period, if you were convicted of a capital offense, let's say, the typical methods of execution were, if you were a commoner, it would be death by hanging. And if you were an aristocrat, you would be decapitated by the executioner's axe. And the guillotine was later invented because it was considered a much more humane method of execution than either of those. But that was like in the 18th century, so much later. Gestro Games says, Pundit says this about Aces and Eights. It was about the cowboy genre, which is often misunderstood. Well, yeah, okay, that's a very general statement, but I could probably speak for a half hour about the ways that the cowboy genre tends to be misunderstood, you know? So I'm not sure if I've got time to elaborate on that here exactly. But I think two of the things that people miss about the real history of the real Wild West is, first of all, was that in essence, the Wild West as we know it could not have existed if it hadn't been for the U.S. Civil War, right? So one of my beefs about a lot of these kind of, for some reason, when people make Wild West RPGs, they for some reason want to like do it as an alternate history thing and change the Civil War in particular, you know. And I never think that works out right, because there wouldn't have been a Wild West the way it was if it hadn't been for the Civil War playing out the way it did. And a lot of the conflicts in the Wild West were, in essence, extensions or continuations of the conflicts between North and South, between Republicans and Democrats, happening in the frontier area. The second thing is that as a conceptual genre, as a literary genre, a constant theme about the Wild West is that the Wild West is ending. The Wild West actually only happened, the most iconic part, the part we think of in all Wild West movies, was actually a very short span of time in real life. It was about 10 years. And that, it disappeared very fast. And so, like, one of the things that you see in any really good Western is this element of this inevitable march of progress, and the way that the West as it was, the freedom of the West, is constantly slipping away, and I think that a good Wild West RPG has to be able to make note of that, or at least especially a good Wild West adventure or campaign setting. And finally, about cowboys themselves, cowboys became icons because of Hollywood, and this idea of the cowboy as the hero of the Wild West. But actually, cowboys or cowhands or what have you were pretty much the scum of the earth in the real historical and the authentic historical period of the Wild West. And the term cowboy itself was essentially for someone who was like a vagrant criminal, to the point that later the largest criminal gang of the West ended up calling themselves the Cowboys, and were, they were the guys that the Earps fought against in Tombstone, so those are, I guess, three small points on that subject, but I could go on. Chris Miller says, RPG Pundit is not the hero we deserve, but the hero we need. Yeah, well, maybe so. Thank you for that. Though he might be a little biased because he's my current publisher, one of my current publishers. He does also say, though, that the Book of Antithesis is the best looking book he's ever seen.
I was just going to interject there because he's obviously a scholar and a gentleman. So.
Yeah, well, I don't think he has any vested interest in saying that. So it's in some ways a very pure statement of it. I guess from the point of view of I'm not a publisher, but from the point of view of a publisher in terms of production, that's high praise. Chris is already gone though, so he didn't hear me say any of that, but all right.
Maybe I'll watch the end later. I wanted to add one thing. We almost got, I know Malachi's Mercurial Musings watches Neckbeardy, A Reborn, but James might do the show. He was a tentative yes this week, but or this month, but some stuff came in the way. So still working on trying to get James as a guest host one of these days. Yeah.
Dracopol says Deadlands is leftistly revising history and deleting any Confederate flags and stuff in their new edition. Well, I haven't looked too much at their new edition. I can I can imagine what they're doing with it now, but I never liked the old edition because it drove me nuts as a historian, right? And as somebody who'd studied, kind of the history of the West, precisely for the reason I just talked about, right? Like you cannot have the Wild West looking anything like the Wild West did with, a civil war that is still going on, like that just doesn't work. And if the Confederates had somehow won the war and were a separate nation, it wouldn't look the same. You wouldn't have had this mass exodus of people from the South and the North going west and then continuing these conflicts in the West in the way it was. And besides that, I think, I don't know what their half-assed wokeism looks like, but their half-assed 90s era liberal good feelings style political correctness where you had you could play a black Confederate Army officer in Deadlands was pretty fucking stupid too, like it was, I don't think they ever did that right.
So guys, we're wrapping up pretty soon. So if you have any last minute questions, you better dump them in the chat.
Well, Malachi seems excited about the possibility of our guest star, so you'll have to let him know, Job, that that our public is demanding it.
Yeah. I saw when I was reading. If you watch any of the Neckbeardia content, he comments on their stuff a lot. So.
Good stuff. Well, hopefully we'll get him in the next show.
Yeah. We'll
and
see.
Speaking of that, our next show is going to be on, I think, Sunday, the 10th of April, barring any unexpected circumstances.
Okay.
I don't know if that's not the Easter weekend or something, isn't it? I never remember these things, but I guess we'll have to double check. But for now, theoretically, that's our next show, the 10th of April. If we change that, we'll try to let people know. So any other comments from the Peanut Gallery before we go? Nothing. One-Legged Frog says, how do you guys feel about Telengard? I have no idea what Telengard is. Oh, is that the new Wizards book? Is that the one that they've done in collaboration with Critical Role, or am I totally
Telengard
missing
is a
the mark here?
1982 role-playing dungeon crawler video game developed by Daniel Lawrence and published by Avalon Hill. Is that what you're talking about?
Never mind, I'm totally wrong.
I don't know. That's the first hit I saw. I just Googled it real quick. One-Legged Frog, can you tell us what you're trying to ask? Hey, Aaron's here. Aaron, we talked about you earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about you earlier, Aaron. You missed the great debate with me and Venger. Unless you were here the whole time and just didn't comment until now. All right. Well, I guess we're just about done then. So if you want to support us, get on Patreon and support our show. And who knows, maybe Venger will be less canceled if you less canceled by his wife if you support him on Patreon. And obviously check out my channel, my YouTube channel, and pick up all my books. Well, those of you who haven't already picked up all my books.
All right, and go pick up the Book of Antithesis. That's my only book that's out right now. Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully I'll get back on book Brutal Blades. I gotta move first. I got too much.
All right, so I guess that's it for today, guys. Take care. Once again, thanks to everyone who expressed sympathies for Big Chungus. I don't think Big Chungus will be soon forgotten, and that's really nice. It's comforting. And I guess we'll see you next time.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We broadcasting live from sunny Sarasota, Florida. Next month.
Excellent. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. Finally. All right. Have a good one, guys.